So thank you for joining us this afternoon, and I'm pleased to welcome Simon Bennett, who works for the Healthy Lifestyles team at the London Borough of Barking and Dagenham. So Simon's going to take us through this afternoon's topic, which is facts and snacks. So thank you, Simon. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on today. So yeah, today's session is fats and snacks. So we're just gonna have just to have a look at a sort of broad understanding of fats and snacks. So the first question is, are all types of fats bad for us? So if you could just write something in the chat, so whether you think they are or they ain't, just to get a consensus of what people think. Are all types of fats bad for us?
So we'll just give you a minute or two if you want to type things in the chat box, and then I can read them out for Simon.
Okay, so we've got someone saying yes. Let's see if we can. No, they are not. Okay, so we've got two different answers there. So we've got another no. Okay, then let's go to the next slide and we'll have a discuss about it. So, yeah, the benefits of fat in our diet. So they're not, all fats are not bad for you actually. So there's benefits to fat in your diet, and we need fat in our diet to help us absorb certain nutrients, such as fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, and E, and K. So you may have heard of them, and some antioxidants. Fat is important in giving your cells structure. So one of the things is omega-3 fat, a type of unsaturated fat that are important for optimum nerve, brain, and heart function. Okay, so that's just a little snippet there of why not all fats are bad. Okay, so but some fats are bad, and then there's a consequence of eating too much fat. Okay, so the first thing that would come to mind, I think, might be weight gain, increased risk of cardiovascular disease, high cholesterol, and increased risk of some cancers. Okay, so fat has more than twice as many calories per gram as carbohydrates or protein. A gram of fat has about 9 calories, while a gram of carbohydrate or protein has about 4 calories. In other words, you could eat twice as much carbohydrates or protein as fat for the same amount of calories. So I don't know if anyone knew that already, but yeah, that can be quite shocking to some people. So literally bite for bite, you'll be having over double the amount of calories. Okay, next slide, right, yeah. So we're going to look at now unsaturated fat in terms of like a guide. So if you want to reduce your risk of heart disease, it's best to reduce your overall fat intake and swap saturated fats for unsaturated fats. All right, so swapping things is a really good idea. So if you know you're eating a saturated fat, you always want to try and look for a swap for an unsaturated fat, a healthy fat. There's good evidence that replacing saturated fats with unsaturated fats can lower your cholesterol level. Okay, They're mostly found in oil from plants, fish. Unsaturated fats can be either monounsaturated or polyunsaturated. So when we sort of broadly talk about good fats, they normally come under monounsaturated or polyunsaturated. Okay. We'll get to what the actual foods that are good fats. We'll get to that in a few slides, but definitely we're going to find out what are the good fats and what are the bad fats. So if we look at saturated fat, yeah, the guidelines are that most people in the UK eat too many saturated fats, and the government recommends that men should not eat more than 30 grams of saturated fat a day, and women should not eat more than 20 grams of saturated fat a day, and children should have less. Okay, so it can be hard to know sometimes how much saturated fat you're eating if you're not looking at the back of the labels of the products that you're of the items you're consuming. Okay, next slide. All right. So now we're going to look at trans fats. I'm sure some of you have probably heard of trans fats. So trans fats are found naturally at low levels in some foods. So in a lot of foods, they're going to be there, but they're very low levels. And they're normally in products such as meat and dairy products. They can also be found in partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. Hydrogenated vegetable oil must be declared on the food's ingredients list if it's not been included. If it's been included, sorry. Okay. Like saturated fats, trans fats can raise cholesterol levels in the blood. Okay, another thing about trans fats is a good fat can also be turned into a bad fat. So if you use oil over and over again, so maybe in some takeaway shops, for example, they might not replace the oil. When you use that oil and you keep reheating it over and over, it can actually transform into a trans fat as well. Okay.
Is a trans fat a bad fat? One question that we've had.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Is a trans fat a bad? Would you call it a bad fat?
Yes, yes, it would be like a saturated fat. So saturated fat and trans fats are the ones that really you want to try to avoid in general. You will have them in small amounts, even if you was really healthy. But yeah, trans fats you're likely to get in meat and dairy products and takeaway food and things like that. So now we're going to look at the different types of fat. Okay, so the first list we're going to look at is unsaturated fat, so monounsaturated or polyunsaturated. Okay, so in no particular order, you've got things like olive oil, rapeseed oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, margarines, olive oil, rapeseed oil, and their spread versions. You've got some nuts, such as almonds, Brazils, and peanuts. One of the things that are in these unsaturated fats are omega-6 fats, which are found in vegetable oils, such as, for example, corn oil, sunflower oil, and there are some other oils as well. And then omega-3, which we've probably heard of before, which is found in oily fish. So the examples here are kippers, herring, salmon, and mackerel. So these are the things, like we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, these are the things that are good for your brain and your nerves and things like that. So if we look over now to the saturated fat, which I'm sure we all have at some point. So these are the ones we really want to sort of identify. So fatty cuts of meat products, including sausages and pies, butter, ghee, and lard, cheese, especially hard cheese like cheddar. So some of the softer cheeses have got less saturated fat in, but they're still going to have some. So again, it would be looking at the back of the labels for that. Some savoury snacks, again, cheese and crackers, and some popcorn that you buy in a shop that is like processed popcorn you need to look at. chocolate, confectionery, biscuits, cakes and pastries, palm oil, coconut oil and coconut cream. All right, so there's a general rule of thumb that anything you're using for your cooking that you would consider oil, but is solid at room temperature. So I don't know if you've ever seen coconut oil and things like lard and palm oil, but at room temperature, they're like waxy substances. So just as a rule of thumb, anything you see like that or anything like that that you use in cooking, it's really good to try to not use it or replace it. So any oil that's solid at room temperature is something we want to try to avoid. So again, omega-3. So most people get enough omega-6 in their diet. So that was the things that are in vegetables. So a lot of people get that in their diet, but it's recommended to have omega-3 by eating at least 2 portions of fish a week, with 1 portion being an oily fish. So I guess what we mean here is, so we had the oily fish list in the previous slide, but also a white fish would have it to a degree in. So for example, like things like cod. So you could have one portion cod, for example, and then you could have salmon, which would be the oily fish. Vegetable sources of omega-3 fats are not thought to have the same benefits on heart health as those in fish. So you may see some products that say they've got omega-3 in, but if it's not an oily fish, it's probably not going to be as good for your heart. So it's a good idea to try and get some fish into your diet. Okay, so now we're going to look at how we reduce fats. So there's just a little snapshot into sort of some breakfast, lunchtime swaps, dinner swaps. But obviously, this isn't going to be necessarily something that we all eat. But the idea is to sort of change the behaviour to maybe sort of remove, replace, or change your routine around the actual eating. So if we start with breakfast swaps, so most of us would have milk with our breakfast, whether it's on our cereal or even in our tea or coffee. So you can use 1% fat milk on your cereal. It's about half the saturated fat as semi-skimmed. So again, it's just replacing. And even if you use full milk, so at the moment, if you're using Blue Top, you could change it to semi-skimmed. And then once you change from semi-skimmed, you could go to 1% fat milk if you felt like it. And that way, it's an easy way to reduce saturated fat. Another common thing for breakfast may be sausages. So again, it's slightly different. We're looking at how we're cooking them. So make sure you grill them instead of frying them. I don't know if you've ever done sausages before, you can see the actual fat comes out of them and you would have been eating that otherwise. So it's a really good way to sort of grill them. Bacon. So if you're buying bacon, try and choose back bacon instead of streaky bacon. And try grilling it instead of frying. So the streaky bacon is going to have a lot of fat running through the product, like all the way through, whereas back bacon might just have a little bit less on. Eggs. So again, eggs. I'm sure people know about eggs, but you can poach, boil, or dry fry your eggs instead of frying with oil. And even if you was going to fry with oil, you could maybe use the spray oil that you get. So like it limits the amount of oil you're using. So you could use that if you had to use oil, but it's best to swap. And then toast. So have sliced banana on a whole grain toast instead of white toast with butter. So it's more of a healthier option now. So there's just some ideas for breakfast. Now, I'm sure we all have different types of breakfast, but we can use that sort of mindset to maybe swap to healthier choices. So lunchtime. So this one is a Sunday lunch we're going to be looking at. So if you're having a Sunday lunch, roast potatoes, make them healthier by cutting them into larger pieces than usual, and just use a little bit of sunflower oil or vegetable oil. The reason why cutting them into bigger pieces is better than smaller pieces is because it's not going to absorb as much fat if they're in bigger pieces than in smaller pieces. Cheese. You can choose a lower fat cheese for sandwiches or for pasta dishes. Again, lower fat cheese you can find in most supermarkets everywhere, and it's an easy option just to cut out quite a bit of saturated fat. Choose whole grain bread instead of white bread for your lunchtime sandwiches. Whole grain anything is always going to be better than white. And then dinner time swaps. If you're having a spaghetti bolognese, you can buy lean mince. It's lower in saturated fat. But if you haven't got lean mince, or you don't buy it, you can brown the mince off first, then drain the fat before adding your other ingredients. So even if you go to your fridge now and you've just got the normal mince and you're thinking, oh, you can still brown it off and then drain the fat. Chips. So choose thick or straight cut chips instead of French fries. Oven chips are always going to be better than fried chips. You could even make your own as well. And when you're doing that, you could just have a drizzle of sunflower oil rather than deep frying. So yeah, it's quite self-explanatory. Deep frying is not the best way to reduce fat in terms of the way we cook. Mashed potato. Use reduced fat spread instead of butter, and 1% fat milk or skimmed milk instead of whole or semi-skimmed milk. With meat, so sometimes we get a lovely cut of meat, but there could be quite a lot of fat on it. It's best to trim off the visible fat. It's just an easy way of just removing that saturated fat. Pizzas. So choose a low-fat topping such as vegetables, ham, fish, or prawns instead of pepperoni, salami, or extra cheese. These are going to be things pepperoni, salami, and extra cheese. They're going to be like some of the highest saturated fat things you can have on a pizza. So yeah, they're the best things you can swap.
Simon, I've got a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
If you're using meat alternatives like corn for your sausages and your mince, has that got less fat than if you were using a meat sausage or mince?
Yeah, so it's going to have less fat, but we've still got to check the back of the product, because it could still have, for example, other stuff in it that is replaced to make it taste different. So we've still got to check the back. But yeah, obviously, it's not a meat product, so it probably would have less fat, but it could have a lot of vegetable oils and things like that. So you still got to check the back. But yeah, it's hard to say for definite that it would always be less fat. But yeah, if you was replacing a very fatty product, yeah, a corn thing would be less.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide. Oh, you're already there, Cynthia. Yeah, sorry, you're already there. Why are healthy snacks important? So, does anyone want to sort of have a guess why are healthy snacks important? Okay, so healthy snacks are important because it's important to eat snacks between meals, because it may stop us or our children overeating at meal times. If you go long periods of time without eating, when you do actually come to eat, you might make the wrong choices in the meals you're eating, or you might overeat. It's an excellent way of getting 5 a day, adding vitamins, minerals, and improving health. And it can also even out your children's energy levels and help them stabilize during the day. So if children are anything like mine, if you want your child to have an even energy level, you want them eating healthy snacks throughout the day rather than sugary ones. What about drinks between meals? Yeah, drinks are okay between meals. It depends on what you're drinking. we don't really want to be drinking very high sugary things in between meals, because it's empty calories and it's going to mess with our children's sort of energy levels. But things like water and maybe fruit juices or fruit smoothies, yeah, it's going to be getting your 5 a day. Okay, so this slide says, can you find a snack in your house? So you don't have to literally get up and find a snack, because time constraints, but would anyone like to just write in the chat something that they might have for a snack? Just so we can sort of get an idea. Pretzels. Biscuit. Okay. Cookies or chocolates. Apples and carrots, right? So we've got some different stuff. Excellent. So as you can see, the first few of them suggestions are things that a lot of people would have. So if we're looking at the screen now, they're more likely to be on the right side, and they're more likely to contain some of the saturated fat. So the better snacks to have would be anything like carrot sticks, pears, anything that's a fruit or a veg. It's going to help you get 5 a day, and your energy levels will be stable. You're not going to have a sort of sugar rush or anything that's very, very high in salt. So thanks for sharing what some of your snacks might be. So if we go to the next slide. So snack options. So again, this is just a little brief kind of thing we just talked about. So fruit in natural yogurt. So if you buy like a natural Greek yogurt and you add your fruit to it, yeah, that's always going to be better from a health perspective for you, for your children, than a bulk yogurt. You can make your own popcorn, so you know how it's being cooked. Cherry tomatoes would be a good snack option for our kids, for our children. Carrot sticks. So we see where we're going with this kind of thing. You can also have, like, if you've got a healthy dip, you can have, if it makes it more appealing. We've got watermelon lollies there, so it's just a way of making something more appealing to children. So you can cut the watermelons into shapes, you can put a stick in, put it in a freezer, and then the child has got a ready-made lolly that's actually healthy. And then you've got your usual suspects with the unhealthy products. So you've got crisps, chocolate, so yogurt. So a lot of yogurts are very high in sugar, especially the ones that are aimed at children. So again, it's very worth looking at the back of a product. Sweets, ice cream, biscuits, and cakes. All right. So just to remember, these unhealthy snacks that we have, it's unrealistic to say that we're never going to have them, and that we're going to go to our cupboards now and throw everything out the cupboard that's unhealthy. But just remember and be realistic that these things in moderation are okay. So if you're having them just now and again, it's okay. It's when we're having them all the time and it's becoming an issue. Okay, so there's some tips. So you can let your children help make or chop their own snacks. You can have fruit readily available in a bowl. You can eat snacks together, because if they see you eating a healthy snack, they're more likely to do the same. So it's modeling, basically. Whatever they see you do, they're going to copy. And remember, it takes up to 10 encounters with a new snack to get your child used to a new food, so don't give up. So we might give our child some carrot sticks tomorrow, and they've never maybe had them before, and they say, don't like them. So that's fair enough, but just don't give up. Just keep trying, and eventually it's likely that they will at least give them a try, and they might even like them. Okay, next one. Excellent. So lunchbox tips. You can have a fun DIY lunchbox by packing items separately, so your children have to assemble them themselves. So you can make the actual lunchtime quite fun. You can try and make the food as colourful as possible. So not only is it going to be more appealing to the child, but it's also better in terms of vitamins and minerals, because the more fruit and veg we can eat in different colours, the better for our health. So that's a winner on both ways. Get children to help make foods and pack their own lunch boxes. So it's good to let the child have a bit of responsibility, and it's also good that they can get involved and they know what they're going to actually be having. You can cut sandwiches into fun shapes, so depending on the age of the child, you can rather do it freehand, or you can get the cutters and cut the sandwiches into shape. Cook extra portions of rice, pasta and potatoes at dinner time, and then you can save it, and then that can go in their lunchbox. So not only are you making sure they're going to have a healthy meal, but also you're going to save money and time as well. Use a child-sized lunchbox. So if you have a lunchbox that's too big, whatever you put in there is going to look small, and it's sort of going to give the appearance that there's not enough. As parents, we never want to underfeed our children, you know. So if we get the correct size lunchbox, that's always going to help. And the last one is pack an ice pack to keep the foods cool. So I'm sure we've all been there. We've had lunch and we take it into school or work, and then we go to get at lunchtime and it's quite warm, and you look at it and it might not be as appetizing as it was earlier. Okay, so now we're going to look at our SMART goals. So every week we do a SMART goal, and this week's one is to eat healthy snacks. So if you want to do a bronze, it's going to be eat healthy snack 3 days a week. And if you want to do a silver, it's going to be eat healthy snacks 5 days a week. And if you want a gold, it's going to be eat a healthy snack 7 days a week. Okay, and as you can see, the SMART goal, for if you haven't been on previous sessions, is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time specific. Okay, so they're just things to keep in mind when we're thinking of our SMART goals. So if you just choose one, that would be great. And the last thing, always remember, small changes eventually add up to huge results. So don't think that this is going to happen overnight. It's a process, but eventually we'll get there, and hopefully we'll be happy and healthier for it.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you, Simon. I think we'll just wait a few seconds to see if anyone's got any final questions before we finish this afternoon. But I've certainly found that very useful myself, and I'm going to try and go for that gold award with my SMART goal this week.
Excellent, excellent. That's what we like to hear.
So if you've got any final questions, put them in the chat. Someone's made a good comment that it's good to give children a few choices of their snacks, so they can actually feel like they're choosing what they want to eat from a range of healthy snacks as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no more questions coming through on the chat, so I think we'll leave it there. And I just want to say thank you to, thanks again to you, Simon. Oh, we've had a quick one, quick questions got in there at the end. So what should be the healthiest thing to take in a packed lunch?
I don't think there is a particular thing that's the healthiest, but we want to try to avoid, it's easy to pack like crisps and chocolates and things like that. So anything where you can have maybe some pasta or some rice in terms of carbs, and then you've got some fruit and vegetables in there, that's always going to be a good combination.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So we'll leave it there for this afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining us, and I will see you all again on Tuesday. Thank you.